This is the Rockford M2 750 watt 5-channel marine amplifier. We do a lot of Jeeps, we've done a lot of Jeeps, and we like to find things that are repetitive, meaning it fits, it works, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. This is one of those things. This guy fits, it ticks all the boxes. It's marine, which means if you're taking the doors off, running it with the top off, or anything like that, it can take some moisture. It's not going to be affected. And that is important when dealing with something like this that's a car, but it's kind of got to be all weather. Let's take a look at this amplifier. All Rockford amplifiers come with some form of a burn-in sheet. This one says 800 watts. If you flip it over, you find screws, Allen key, and high-level input plugs. So this will do RCA as well as high-level. On the bottom underneath the amplifier, you find the bass knob. It uses a phone-style jack. There is a small bag of screws that allows you to take the bass knob apart. To do that, there's 2 screws here on the bottom side. Phillips, you remove those. This whole thing comes apart and it's easy enough to mount into a custom location, which we'll be doing later on in the install. Let's take a closer look at the amplifier. Power rating wise, this is 50 watts by 4 at 4 ohms. 100 watts by 4 at 2 ohms. You can bridge it to 200 by 2 at 4 ohms. And it's 350 watts out to the subwoofer. The crossover is a 12 dB Butterworth, and it has a frequency range of 20 to 25,000, both high pass and low pass. Punch EQ, one of my favorites. 18 dB boost at 45 Hertz like it's always been. Looking at the top of the amplifier, we have a bunch of switches and dials and knobs. The first of which is auto remote turn on. If you're going to be using this as a high level input, you can choose to run a remote turn on and or use the DC offset sense to turn the amplifier on. Followed next to that, because the first up is the subwoofer corresponding with its output, you have punch EQ, then the crossover and gain section. It also has an infrasonic or subsonic filter, variable between 15 and 40 Hertz, and then the gain. Follow that up with rear, located here, 50 to 250, low pass, off, high pass, adjustable gain. Next to that is your input selection. You can input all 5 channels, 4 channels, or 2 channels. If you pick 4 channels, the 4 RCAs will create the 5th non-fade output for the subwoofer. If you pick 2 channels, you can just put a set of RCAs into the front and it'll populate all the others. Last up is the front output corresponding to this. Same crossover, 50 to 250, low pass, off, and high pass. The gain is adjustable between 1 and 11 volts on all of them. If we flip the amplifier up and look at the side, ground, remote, power, 4 gauge inputs. The rest are going to be a 12 gauge, sub positive, sub negative, rear, left positive, left negative, right positive, right negative, followed up by front in the same order. Bass knob plugs in right here. High level input for sub, front, rear, as well as your RCAs, sub, rear, front. So these all go in the same direction as these, as the same direction of those, so everything makes sense as you're putting the amplifier in. Speaking of putting the amplifier in, how are we going to put this into the car? What pieces do we need? Well, this is the Metra JP18 amp -2. This is a 2 amp kit for the JL, Wrangler, or Gladiator. They sell this in a single amp kit, as well as this dual amp kit. The reason why we buy the dual amp kit is because it's the same brackets, whether you do passenger or driver. This is a better deal when it just comes down to it. We get more parts that we can use in multiple vehicles. Let's take a look and see what comes with this dual amp kit, and then you can decide what you want to do. The big difference between the dual and the single is the dual amp kit gives you power wire for going underneath the driver and passenger seat, whereas the single amp kit is made to go underneath the passenger seat only. That's something to think about if you're cool with mounting it underneath the passenger seat. I like to go underneath the driver's seat with the amplifier. When you open it up right on top, you have this cool bracket. This bracket comes with both the single and dual kits. We have 2 different fuses with 2 different color wires. The reason why they do that is driver and passenger, so that you know which one is which. This is made out of metal. This bolts into place using factory bolt locations. Underneath the top piece are the 2 brackets. I really like these 2 brackets. We've been using these a lot lately. What makes them unique is this configuration here. This is the front of the vehicle, this is the back of the vehicle. It rises up like this, so the floor mats and feet and everything still go up underneath it without getting in the way. It's a really cool design. It's designed to sit like this, back of the car, front of the car. And one of the reasons why I like this amplifier so much is it fits on here perfect, just like such. You do need to drill your own holes, but it goes in great. Wires come out towards the bottom, immediately go into the carpeted hump that's right here, so you can zip tie all this up, get a really nice look, which you'll see once we get to that part of the video. But it just sits in here really nice like this. Getting back to what comes in the box, the second mount, identical. Subwoofer 12 gauge speaker wire, one of the 4 gauge power runs, 2 ground wires that are 3 feet long. The second power wire, red, comes with a 6-foot 2-channel RCA, and it comes with a 4-channel RCA 6-foot with the multi-stranded wire already done inside of it. This kit is great if you're gonna be doing a 4-channel and a mono block right out of the gate. You can do 2 big amps underneath each seat, or you can combine these two just like this and do what we're doing with a 5-channel installation. It comes with a T-harness. If you're not going to be doing something like a DSR1 or an Amp Pro, they do give you the T-harness. You can plug into a regular high level to low level adapter, whatever you want to do there. And then it comes with a bag of installation parts. The bag of installation parts is a really nice bonus. You have ferrules inside of here, fuses, 8-inch zip ties, fork terminals of all different sizes for all different size wires, rubber connections to go over the fork terminals, grommets, shrink wrap, small ferrules along with the big ferrules. So it has everything you could need for your installation. This kit was designed so you could buy this and you'd be all set and ready to go. You wouldn't have to go run into the store to find some extra stuff. It does come with an installation guide. It's color. It walks you through the process for removing the seats, running the wire. They do also have a video up showing you how to do the installation their way, and it gives you kind of a breakout in the very last page of how they would run the wires if they were doing a mono under the passenger seat and a 4-channel under the driver's seat. And like all Metra products, somewhere in the box there's a catch-all container that'll hold all these accessories for me until I need them. Back to the last page in the installation manual. This is going to show us which wire we want for which side of the car. Do we need the white one or do we need the red one? The red one is designed for passenger and the white one is designed for driver. They are different lengths, so knowing this is important. On the front page, it gives us the measurements for the space where your amplifier is going to go if you'd like to know if your amplifier is going to fit. It's 11.5 inches across by 7.5 inches tall. Metra does put all their catalogs online, so if you want to dig deep into this catalog and really see what it can do for you, by all means head over to metraonline.com and check that out. The nice thing is they've saved us the hassle of putting the flex loom on the wires. It's already on and done. That's going to save us some time in the installation. Both of the ground wires are the same length, and it is also covered in the flexi loom. Digging into our parts bag, there's at least a dozen 8-inch zip ties that are standard, and then they give you 5 or 6 with holes in them to screw down if you need to. What I'm looking for is my positive and negative ferrules, and for the rest of the stuff I'm just going to put it in a little bin so I can grab it as needed. In there are the smaller ferrules, as well as if your amplifier needs a fork terminal, so you have both inside of here. Fuses that come inside of it are 100 amp. One step we need to do, because these are Rockford amplifiers, you may need to do on some of your installs too. The way the Rockford amplifier is designed, there's really not enough room coming out of the amplifier because they're at an angle to allow for something like this. I need to remove the little plastic parts. Razor knife, drops right out. This is what I need. On the end of the power wire, it has this silicone filled shrink wrap, and it's really designed for that ferrule with that to go over the end of it. In this case, it's not gonna work. Very gently cut and remove this piece of shrink wrap. Strip the 4-gauge wire, slide our ferrule into place. It does come with 3 pieces of shrink wrap that say T-spec on them, which are made for going underneath the hood. So when you do something like this to modify the end, you're gonna have to use your own shrink wrap to go over it. 1/2 inch heat shrink should do the trick. Line it up. shrink it down into place, and now we have an end that will work in the Rockford amplifier. We'll do the same thing to our ground wire. If you make a bracket that is universal, it's hard to make something that's gonna have holes for every single thing. In this case, it doesn't. So we have to make our own holes. We have an awl here that we're gonna use to scratch in where we need to drill our holes. And what I've done, because it's at an angle, as you see these here, this is to prop it up flat so it just doesn't continuously slide off. And that has marked our full hole locations. Now we'll mark those areas. Drill our first hole. That is our starter hole. Switching drill bits over to this. This is gonna allow us to drill a threaded hole for an M4 screw. It's got a drill bit tip on it, but I don't like to use that to do all the drilling. I like to pre-drill the hole. That will get us a threaded hole so we can use an M4 Allen head screw to lock the amplifier in place. I'm gonna do that on these 3 other holes.